let's move on to the next part of the tutorial. So let me go back to my documentation. So we were right over here, part 1, request and response. And if you scroll to the bottom, we have almost covered all of the things in these tutorials. Now obviously there are a lot of things in the official documentation and it's not possible to cover each and every line. The purpose of this tutorials is just to give you an overview of how to approach the official documentation and how to learn Django. And as you progress with Django, you will have to come back and refer to this documentation time and time again. I just want to make your journey a little bit easier. So if I scroll to the very bottom, so we saw how to create the polls app, then we created the view, this was the folder structure, the URLs, and I think we have covered almost all of the things. So this is a little bit more documentation about the path inside the URLs. If you want, you can read all of those things. But I think we are good to go to the next part. So let me click on this one. So this is for the part number 2. So as you can see, the first thing that they are mentioning is about the database setup. So what happens is each and every application has to talk to a database because all of your data will live inside the database. Now Django is really excellent with working with your SQL based databases. For example, you can see over here SQLite or MySQL or maybe Postgres or maybe Oracle. So any of the SQL based databases will go really well with Django. And one of the most recommended and one of the most popular database is Postgres. But what happens for development? It's much easier to get started with SQLite, and working with SQLite does not need any other additional setup. So let us try to learn more about the databases inside Django. So the first thing they are saying that we need to go inside our project folder and then inside the settings.py file. Inside this, there are two variables which are important. One is for the engine and for the name. So let us do the same thing. Let me open up my code editor. Let us go inside my site. Let us go to settings. Let me collapse my sidebar. And so this is the top. Let me take out the comments. I don't need the comments. Now let me scroll little towards the bottom. So this is the middlewares that we talked in the last lecture. Then we have templates. We will come to templates a little bit later on. So here it is. So inside settings, we have an object for the databases. So inside this, you can see that the default engine is the SQLite engine. So it simply means that which database are we using. If we are using Postgres or if we are using MySQL, so we need to specify which engine we are using. The next one is for the name. So let me open up my sidebar again. So this is actually showing us the path for our database. So this is our base directory, and inside our base directory we have a database, and the name of the database is db.sqlite3. So if you see in my sidebar, let me collapse this as well. So this is my base directory, and inside my base directory here we have our database db.sqlite3. Now if I open this database, you will see that the database is empty. So I can click on open database. So what you can do is just go to your extensions tab and here just search for SQLite and just install this plugin called as SQLite. And after you install this, then we can go back to our editor and just click on this, and you can just click on open database. So here you can see that we have a new explorer window. Let me take this a little up. So this is our database, and you can see that there is nothing inside the database as of now. It's empty. Now let us go back to the documentation and let us see what we are supposed to do next. So here we can see that they are talking a little bit more about your settings file. So let us go back to the settings file and let me try and explain all of the different knobs you have inside the settings file. So let us go to the very top. So basically this settings file is like the master file for Django. Whenever Django wants to go for any kind of configuration or application settings, it is always going to look inside this file. So the first thing that you can see over here, this is the secret key. So this is actually a security feature, and this is required for so many security features. For example, if you want to generate a CSRF token or any other kind of feature, at those times Django is going to use this secret key. So next, on line number 14, we can see that the current development environment for debug is set as true. So that means right now we are inside the debug mode, and whenever we want to go to production, at that time we can set this as false. So the allowed host is all of the different domains which are allowed to access this Django installation. The next is the installed apps. Now Django ships with a lot of inbuilt applications. So you can see that there is one application for your admin, one is for your authentication, one is for your sessions, and so on. So Django has different applications built inside. And in our case, we have also built one application called as polls. So let me just collapse this one. Let me take this one down as well. So this is the application that we are building as of now. So polls application. And shortly, when we will see how to work with models, we can see that we can also install our app right over here. But right now, let's go with the flow and let us see different kind of settings. The next is middleware. I have already spoken about it, so I will not cover it right now. The next comes your root URL configuration. So that means from where Django should look for your URLs. So again, the path is very simple. It has to go to your package of my site, and from there you can access the module of URLs. The next one is for the templates. In case if we have some dedicated directories for our templates, you can put it right over here. And the default backend, as you can see, is the Django templates. Or if you want to use Jinja, you can use the Jinja templates as well. And we have a couple of context processors as well. So right now we don't have to learn about all of those things. The next is the path for your WSGI application. The next comes your database. So we just spoke about database. The next part is for your authentication password validators. So these are some of the basic password validation features which are included by default in Django. So as you can see here, we have one validation for the minimum length, and we also check if the password is a common password or not. So these are different security measures that ships with Django. The next is the language. By default, it's US English. The time zone is the UTC time zone, and we have some other URLs as well. Normally, you would have to deal with the static URLs or static files such as CSS or JavaScript. So this simply gives the path where we can find all of our static assets. The next comes our default autofill. So I will cover this part when we see how to use our models. So this was a slight overview of the settings that we can find inside Django.